Welcome to memoQ Talks, where we talk to industry leaders about their experiences, lessons learned, and what works best across all areas of localization. Now here's your host.
Hello everybody, welcome to memoQ Talks. My name is Mark Schreiner and I'll be your host for this episode of memoQ Talks. Today we're going to be talking to Mr. Charles Campbell, who is the founder and president of the Translation Back Office. The Translation Back Office is a leading provider of project management, translation, and localization services with offices in Argentina, Peru, Thailand, Ukraine, and Vietnam. And we're going to be talking to Charles about some best practices related to attending Loc Industry Events for both attendees, exhibitors, and speakers. And then we're going to talk about an upcoming event that's going to be held in Rio de Janeiro, I believe on March 24th and 25th, called Vamos Juntos. Sounds pretty exciting. But before we do all that, let's say hi to Charles. Charles, how are you today?
Hi, Mark. I'm doing really well. Thank you very much. How about you?
Awesome. Good. Whereabouts are you?
I'm based in Cordoba, Argentina. But I'm originally from New Zealand.
Yeah, that's a big difference, I would assume. And you've been there for quite some time. You know, this is a really general, broad question when I want to ask, like, what's it like in Argentina? But let's be a little more specific. What I hear some amazing things about, the people are so friendly, amazing food, the beautiful scenery. I also hear that, there can be some challenges dealing with, business and bureaucracies and things like that. I mean, what's your kind of very high level take on all that?
Well, I can tell you I've been here for like 25 years and I really like it here. I'm obviously here because I choose to be here, and the people are just wonderful to work with. The country is very, very beautiful. Okay, yeah, economically and legally, it's a bit of a messy place to do business, but there's a very healthy translation, interpreting, and localization community here, very healthy ecosystem. So I'm not the only one who's chosen Argentina to make their home.
No, I was super impressed. I was in Gala in, I believe it was April this last year, 2022, in San Diego. And the country outside of the US that was most widely represented was Argentina. There were so many people coming up from Argentina, both, LSP owners, freelancers, project managers. And it was super cool to see all these people coming in and participating in events. So speaking of events, you've been in this industry for quite a few years, and I'm sure you've been to pretty much all the majors. What are your thoughts in terms of, like, when you go to an event, if you were going to coach somebody, and let's just say they're an exhibitor, what would you advise them how to get the most out of an event?
Believe it or not, I've never actually exhibited at a single event. And I've been to, perhaps 40 events. I've been a speaker, an attendee, and an organizer, but I've never actually exhibited. But so I'm not really perhaps the best person to give advice to exhibitors, but I always would look for a conference or an event that is friendly and respectful towards the exhibitors, gives them the space that they deserve and the time they deserve.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, let's turn it around a little bit. As an attendee, what type of exhibitors impress you or engage with you?
Well, that's an easier one for me to answer. I always speak to the exhibitors, and first of all, I look at what's appropriate for where I do business. For example, an exhibitor selling insurance for the United States wouldn't be the exhibitor that I would want to talk to. But I always talk to the technology exhibitors in particular. I want to hear what's out there. I want to know. I want to benchmark, see what I'm doing right, see what I'm doing wrong. Even though I'm not a technology expert, I take their cards or take their LinkedIn IDs and then connect them back to the people at my organization who really know the tech stuff. But I think the tech is always the number one attraction for me.
Okay. So if you are in that space, make it very visible that, hey, you've got this technology and you have some type of, unique selling proposition or unique value proposition. So people want to stop by and talk with you.
Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to be sold to, but people, when they want to buy right at that time, and they don't want whoever's selling to say, oh, I'm on vacation, we can't do your deal right now. So when people don't want to be sold to, but when they want to buy, they really want to buy, and you have to be ready for it. So I think exhibiting is a great way to keep yourself on the tip of people's tongues, top of mind, recognition. And I've bumped into many exhibitors over and over at events and have developed great relationships.
What advice would you give to people like you who are just attending events and they want to get the most out of it? What should they do?
Well, if they're attending for the first time, then it's a bit hit and miss. But if you're a seasoned attendee, then you know what you're looking for. What I look for is an event where I'm going to feel welcomed and included, and the people are interesting and open to discussion. Every now and then you go to an event and it's like a bunch of snobs, and that's just really not the event that I have time for. It's a busy calendar, business, family, sports, vacations. There's not a lot of time to just go to any number of events per year. You have to pick and choose. Budgets are tight. So I really look for events where I feel welcomed and I come away with a positive feeling, and where I learn something. I don't believe I've ever been to a single event where I was bored or learned nothing. You always learn something. You always come away with something. It can be intangible. It can be elusive to put the return on investment on that trip straight away. But you look back on things and think, yeah, I got that client, or I acquired that technology, or I met that person at that particular event. And, what an impact that's had on my life or my business. And sometimes these things circle back quite a bit of time after the event.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, like if you run a pay-per-click campaign, you can get some pretty immediate feedback on what's your ROI. Of course, some of those conversions take longer, but there's kind of a direct correlation. And sometimes with events, you also can, you can walk away with prospects who are very interested in doing business in the short term. Oftentimes, though, it's those people that you meet will introduce other people, and it's kind of like you're building up your kind of your business development pipeline and capital in those relationships. So it's a little bit more difficult to quantify. I'm just curious, as the president of a company, what do you feel is like a healthy mix of events? I mean, is there a specific number, or do you focus on specific regions?
Depends on how much time you have and how big your budget is and where you're located. For example, almost all of the events in the world in the translation, interpreting, and localization ecosystem are in the Northern Hemisphere, and specifically in the United States and in Western Europe. Even before the war in Ukraine, it was uncommon to have an event in Eastern Europe. And that's how it is in this industry. So people gravitate from the so-called fringes or emerging markets to the central markets where deals are done and where the larger buyers and larger translation companies have their headquarters or their main offices, where the decisions are made. I mean, let's face it, Ford Motors is almost in every country in the world, but the decisions are usually made in the United States. The bigger the decision, the more centrally located that is. So I think it's important to attend these events and to choose the ones that you want, balance them with your other activities. I always avoid events where there's a potential for extreme weather. I do remember there was I think a gala conference in Boston a few years ago where it got hit by a snowstorm. You were there. You never know when that's going to happen. But every time I see an event that is around like the end of autumn or fall in the United States, I steer clear because I just don't want to get snowed in. So you're looking at spring and autumn for your events. I did see last year that there were a couple of events organized even in July, which I thought was very unusual. Maybe it was a post-COVID thing where the calendar was jammed and they had to squash them in there. But I've been fortunate enough to travel the world with my job. I work with amazingly passionate people. I have wonderful and respectful clients that want to work with me and appreciate me. Most of them, almost all of them, I would say, really want to work with me. And that adds a lot of value to it. And meeting people is very special. And breaking bread with people face to face is so much better than a virtual meeting or a virtual introduction. So yeah, we've got to have a drink sometime soon, Mark.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny about that Boston trip. I think people who flew to Boston, some people had their flights delayed and so on. I was actually crazy enough that I drove from Seattle to Boston. I'd been out of the States for 5 years. No, 9 years. Been in Singapore and then Japan. Yeah, 9 years. And I had this window of opportunity. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to drive. And it was pretty cool. My oldest son flew out. He actually worked the booth with us. And we drove back together. And because we were in a car, we didn't have to depend on the airplanes. But
there you go. These are the wonderful experiences you have. I remember I was at a conference in the UK, and a volcano erupted, I believe, in Iceland and showered the UK with ash. And I ran to the train station and got a train to Paris as quick as I could. The train was jammed with people. The French transport union went on strike just to add to the mix.
Well, of course. When are they not on strike?
Yeah, so we rented a tiny little Audi A1, and four big guys squeezed into the car. And I had bought my son, who was just about to be born, a stroller that you could only find in the UK and you couldn't find in Argentina. And I was trying to fit the stroller into the car. And I went to the bathroom. When I came back, the other three people in the Audi were like, they had crossed their arms and said, it's either you or the stroller. And we drove all night to Madrid, which was the only open airport. So these are amazing stories. And I did actually manage to negotiate the stroller into the trunk of the car somehow. So, these are amazing stories that we remember, and friendships are made. I don't believe in coming back from an event with a signed and sealed deal under your arm. I think that sales cycle is longer, but it's not necessarily that long. As I said at the beginning of the call, people don't want to be sold to, but when they want to buy, they're ready to buy. So if you're there at the right time and you have the right pitch, or especially if they come to you, the sales cycle can be very short. So you can come home with what could evolve into a deal, to some reasonable business, some exciting opportunities. Maybe you just go to the conference and learn some ideas that transform your business or transform your life. I even know some people who fell in love at a conference. Won't name names.
I know people that fall in love multiple times at every conference, but hey, I'm not going to name names either. So no, I totally am in agreement with you that the beauty of events is meeting people and developing those relationships, and having a meal, maybe having a drink. I actually had fun at the last event I went to, just doing the morning run. Getting up and going out and doing a short little jog with 6, 7, 8 different people. Because you're not wearing suits, it's a casual environment, but you're learning about each other, and so that was really cool. Let me ask you, we have some of the usual suspects, like the galas, the Loc Worlds, etc. Some others. Some people would say those are great because you can meet your industry contacts and continue to develop those relationships and meet new people. Other people sometimes say it seems like it's always the same companies there, and it maybe doesn't help their business as much as, say, going to, instead of a Loc Industry event, but a target industry event. So, for example, if you are targeting automotive, maybe an automotive industry event that is somehow related to marketing or content or the production of manuals, etc. Likewise, for life sciences, an event, if you're targeting life science companies, an event that is focused on labeling or some type of or linguistic validation or something like that. What are your thoughts in terms of mixing Loc Industry versus target industry events?
Well, before I answer that, I was just thinking about your morning run. We did a morning run at the Association of Language Companies unconference in Costa Rica on the beach. and
Nice.
that was amazing. 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. morning runs on the beach. Well, put it this way: I think that you're going to have a lot more fun at a localization industry event than at a labeling event. That's sorry for the labelers out there, but
Vicious stereotype. Labelers are amazing people, man.
yeah, I think that a
We're
labeling
gonna
event.
get all kinds of heat for that.
Oh yeah, I'm going to get heat for that. But I think that localization industry events are very interesting. Yes, okay, there are some events that repeat speakers. Some speakers are just really worth repeating.
Sure.
I mean, I can think of one guy that I've heard like 15 times, and every time I learn something new and I have a laugh. So, yes, same faces, but also new faces and new opportunities. I like the way the events are moved around. I would throw down the gauntlet and say, move them further around, i.e. Tokyo, New Delhi, Sao Paulo, Mexico City. I would move them further around. But I do like the way that these events are bounced around, Seattle, Barcelona, Portland, San Francisco, Dublin. These are all wonderful places to visit. There's not a bad name on that list. So it's very exciting. I'm going to be going to Portland for the first time later this year to the Association of Language Companies annual conference in September, and I'm really excited about that. I'm referring to Portland, Oregon, not the other Portland. Maine.
The other side.
Yeah. But no, it's a great way to see the world, meet people, work. It all goes in the mix. As I said, there's not a single event that I've ever been to where I was bored, and an amazing amount of business is generated at these events. Maybe if you go to Gala and there's like 25 people from your same industry or same city or same vertical segment or whatever, or same country, you might be like just another Chihuahua jumping up and down for the dog biscuit. But, it's up to you whether you put yourself in that situation and you have some kind of differentiator. Sorry, once again, I don't know about the labeling conference, but but I've really enjoyed every event I've been to and gotten a lot out of it. Sometimes things happen. You're away, you're on the road, you're not with your family. So these, resources are scarce. Time is the number one resource. So use it wisely.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. And by the way, I'm like 3 hours up the road from Portland. I'm up at the Seattle Bellevue area. So I'll probably see you down at the ALC event in September, if not sooner. And it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned Gala, and I think I mentioned that as well. At the event that I was there last year, I mean, talking about this, the ability to connect with people. I'm sitting there having having lunch with a group of people. You usually have 6, 7, 8 people around a table. And then I start talking to the person next to me, and turns out he's from the Seattle area. And I said, well, we're in Seattle. He goes, well, Bellevue. I go, well, we're in Bellevue. Turns out we live literally like 4 or 5 blocks away from each other. And we've been in the industry for many years. He's been for, probably twice as long as me, but we've never crossed paths. And it's a pretty, I don't know, everybody seems to know each other for whatever reasons. Maybe he's just always on the road going to these events. I don't know. But if I wouldn't have been at that event, I wouldn't have met him. And since then, we've had a lot of collaboration. We've done some marketing events together and things like that. So, yeah, I'm endorsing everything that you just said there. Let me ask you about the Vamos Juntos. What's your role? What's the event? Why is it awesome?
Okay, well, yeah, it is awesome. Vamos Juntos is the first ever conference that Juntos is organizing. And you're probably thinking, well, what is Juntos? Juntos, or Juntos in Portuguese, so it's Juntos in Spanish, Juntos in Portuguese, spelt the same way, just pronounced differently, means together in English. So myself and several other people from Mexico, Peru, Brazil, and Puerto Rico joined together, and we created an association of language service providers of Latin America and the Caribbean. And it was such a mouthful. We didn't know whether we were the ALC-ALS or the ALS-ALC, or so we spent a whole afternoon with some wine glasses and in Lima, Peru, discussing the matter and bouncing around all sorts of silly combinations. And finally, we came up with Juntos. So Juntos is a new association that is designed to represent the interests of translation, interpreting, and localization companies in Latin America and the Caribbean. Specifically, the objective of Juntos is to raise the bar, raise the standard of the industry in Latin America and the Caribbean in general. And that is articulated through different initiatives. For example, encouraging the creation of national associations. At this time, only Argentina and Brazil have national associations. All the other countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, despite having an enormous number of localizers, desktop publishers, engineers, project managers, you name it. There's a whole ecosystem there, an iceberg, where you're only seeing this thin layer on the top and the rest is invisible. Well, it's like there's a great big industry out there and we're only seeing a small part of it. So the idea is to articulate that industry, raise standards, create opportunities for networking, benchmarking, coaching, all the ings, mentoring as well. And this is particularly important in Latin America when you think about the fact that Latin America is a huge region. It's 4 or 5 times the size of Europe. You know, geographies are long. You can't just jump on a train like I did from London and escape the apocalypse. It's a long flight. So we need to bring people together, juntos, to meet face-to-face and kickstart the association. So that's why we organized Vamos Juntos, which literally means let's go together, in Rio de Janeiro for March 24 and March 25. Rio is an amazing destination that everybody seems to know about. You know, the Corcovado statue, guy standing up there, recently had a very bombastic, obnoxious president that a lot of people were happy to see the end of. The Sugar Loaf Mountain in the harbor with the gondolas. I mean, you just think of toucans and parrots and samba music, but almost nobody seems to have actually been to Rio. It's a very weird situation where it has kind of almost universal awareness, but nobody's been there. So that's why we chose it. We were looking for a city that was more or less in the middle, in inverted commas, of Latin America. So we didn't want to go down to Argentina and we didn't want to go up to Mexico. We wanted somewhere in the middle. And we'd already had a wonderful board meeting in Lima. So we chose Rio de Janeiro. We've got more attendees than we originally planned for. It's kind of evolved from being an executive retreat to being a fully blown conference. We have amazing sponsors. We have memoQ, we have Plunet, we have Multilingual Magazine. We have amazing speakers. Gosh, it's just a really long list of speakers. It's the first ever event that we've organized. It's been a lot of work. I bet you some things are going to go wrong because it's the first time we're doing it and we're learning. We don't have 20 years in it like some people do. But we've put a lot of effort in and we're really excited. And there's a great program, a great schedule of different discussions about all sorts of things like sales, continuous education, standards, associations. And the whole emphasis of it is to get together, hence the name, and to kickstart our association, which is at this time a fledgling association with almost no money in the bank and a handful of members. So we're trying to get off the ground, and this event is meant to be the showcase. And from what I can see in the build-up to the event, where we've already got people who've signed up for 2024, offering to speak, offering to host, people flying from Germany, Canada, Italy, the U.S., all over Latin America. I'm just blown away by the response. So I'm looking forward to having some caipirinhas in Rio.
That's awesome. I mean, you got me motivated, and I got to, after this call, send a message to our marketing team to see if I can figure out a way to get me there. So, but what can you tell me in terms of like numbers of attendees, exhibitors, things like that?
We don't actually have exhibitors per se in the traditional sense. We have sponsors. There's three
Okay.
sponsors: memoQ, Plunet, and Multilingual Magazine. We've got about 50 attendees so far, but we're 3 weeks out. I think that's amazing.
Sure.
I don't think there were
Yeah,
50 people at the first ALC event 20 years ago. But I'm not comparing, but I'm just saying it's pretty amazing for a first event. So we're really excited. Some people are bringing their spouses. We've organized the social calendar. There's going to be a rooftop cocktail party in front of Copacabana Beach. Pretty beautiful place. There's also going to be a Brazilian churrascaria dinner, which is where the Brazilians go wild on the beef. There'll also be seafood and vegan options, but the central piece will be the Brazilian beef. Since I live in Argentina, I'm looking forward to checking this out. We're also going to be hearing some local music, and I heard a rumor that a wine tasting is being organized. So lots going on. Oh, yes, and a city tour to see the Corcovado statue and the Sugarloaf Mountain the day after the conference. So it looks like people are going to make friends. We're going to build bridges between the different countries in Latin America and the Caribbean and learn a lot. And I'm sure some business will be done. That's guaranteed.
What I like about that is it sounds like you have a really good mix between, presentations and learning sessions, but also the social sessions. And for me, I tend to kind of favor maybe it's because I got the ADHD or whatever. I can only sit still for a limited amount of time. And then I prefer to be out, at a table or, like I said, on a run or maybe at a bar. I've occasionally been seen there. Yeah, so it sounds like an amazing event. You kind of already answered my next question. It sounds like this is going to be an annual recurring event. Is it always going to be in Rio, or are you going to look at different locations?
It definitely won't always be in Rio. I can't guarantee it will be an annual event forever, but as long as there's a high level of interest, I expect that Vamos Juntos will be around for quite a while. The idea would be to rotate it around. I mean, our objective is to develop the industry in Latin America and the Caribbean, to raise the standard of the industry, raise the bar, encourage the increased adoption of quality standards, and create opportunities for people to network. So we've got to move around, and Latin America is a very big place. So I can see future events in Mexico, in Argentina. I'm sure Puerto Rico would be an attractive destination. Colombia,
for those runs up.
Costa Rica.
Was it Costa Rica? Was that Costa Rica where you had the runs on the beach? Was it Puerto Rica? No, it was Costa Rica. Yeah.
Costa Rica was the ALC conference, which I was on the committee that organized, and that was a wonderful event. Everyone came back from that saying it was one of the best or the best event they had ever been to. So that's hard to top. I certainly thought it was amazing. Beautiful country, beautiful people, very relaxed.
Cool. If anybody, because we'll get this podcast up online probably about 3 weeks before this Vamos Juntos initial inaugural event. But if people want to get more information, I can put links in the show notes. But what can you tell them? Where can they go? How can they get more information?
Well, the easiest way is to reach out to one of the board members, which would be myself, Charles Campbell, or my friend and co-worker, Ivan Escamilla. You can go to there's a huge amount of material on LinkedIn. We also have a website. So there's a lot of information out there. If you Google us, you'll find us. We're very easy to find. I guess we're a noisy bunch. We're visible, and we want to make Latin America more visible. We're looking forward to having more events in Latin America. I think Latin America is an attractive place. There's a very strong connection between Latin America and the United States in the translation, interpreting, and localization space. Spanish is usually the #1 language in the United States for most companies, whether or not it's translation, or interpreting, or localization. And a lot of company owners or company managers, project managers, from the bottom up and the top down, have some kind of connection to Latin America, family, military, church, whatever, travel. So I can see events in Latin America being popular. Also, if you organize an event anywhere between November and March, the weather seems to be getting worse and worse with global warming, crazy winters. So having an event in Central America was very attractive in Costa Rica for the ALC, everyone poolside. But that said, Latin America is a very important region, a very vast region. And there's a lot to show. There's a lot to, the people are wonderful hosts. There's some political strife in some countries. Okay, yeah, sure. And there's political strife in some parts of Europe too, and Asia. So that goes, other than Scandinavia and New Zealand, almost everywhere in the world has some of that. But you can plan your event around that. And so I'm looking forward to seeing more of Vamos Juntos events and more events in general in Latin America.
Awesome. Just a couple more questions and we can wrap this up. But will you have any kind of virtual component to the Vamos Juntos event? So if people can't attend in person, but they wanted to, watch the keynote, for example, or do some type of participate in some of the learning sessions, is there anything like that? Is that an option yet, or is that something you consider in the future?
That's a very good question. Several people have asked us, and the answer is quite simple. The answer is no, because we want people to be together, hence the name, break bread together, have a coffee or something stronger, and get to know each other. And what we found is that with virtual events, in many cases, but not all, people tune into the sessions, and then when the networking or social part comes on, they disappear. Right, they go back to their email. The all attractive email tractor beam sucks them in. So we wanted people to meet. We wanted to break down barriers because it's true that people in the industry in Mexico don't know much about the industry in Argentina, and people in Argentina don't know almost anything about what's going on in Uruguay and Chile that are right next door. And the Brazilian industry has historically been quite domestically focused and is now reaching out to the world. So there's a lot going on, and we're shamefully ignorant, I'm generalizing, about each other here in Latin America. It's amazing. So this is going to be a vehicle for us to get to know each other better as well.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, congratulations on this inaugural event, and I wish you the best. Sounds like a super, super fun thing to participate in. And I know that some of my colleagues will be down there with you. And hopefully next year I'll get the green card, or not the green card, the hall pass to go.
Yeah.
So
green card is something else. And yes, your co-worker Alessio De Martis, I believe, is coming from memoQ. And it's going to be great to have him there. I've spoken to him several times, helping him get organized. He's coming down from the cold to the heat, which is another one of the attractions in Rio. Everyone's going to be bringing their swimsuits. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Charles. You take care.
Take care.
Thank you for joining memoQ Talks, where we talked with industry leaders about their experiences and lessons learned to gain new insights about what works best across all areas of localization. Join us next time on memoQ Talks.